The tariffs. Hold on one second. Geez, Louise, what's the news about the tariffs? Oh, I'm getting confused.
Oh, there's an oral argument on that this week.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, fine. So the markets, I wasn't following them, but I was told they tanked after Gorsuch asked a question, which lent itself to potentially mean that the deciding vote was going to decide in favor of the unlawfulness or the exceeding of congressional powers by Trump. I listened to a couple of snippets here and there, but from what I understood, it didn't look good. The question was going to be the potential remedy if his actions are declared to have been exceeding the statutory authority provided by Congress. What did you think of the oral arguments, and what's your prediction as to where it's going to go?
He's going to lose, and he might lose as bad as 9-0. So people get confused with my analysis on what the Supreme Court's going to do with what I would like the Supreme Court to do. So, or what I think about the policy. It's amazing some of the responses when I'm critical of any aspect of what's going on in the Trump administration. I'll get people say, "Well, I guess you love DeSantis, huh?" It's like, you moron, you're so lazy. You can't even read, just search. Go to Barnes Launder X and then search it. And then another person say, well, when I was critical of Trump saying everything's fine on the cost of living, saying this is not a smart pitch. And they're like, well, did you say that when Biden was president? I was like, yeah, just go to the page. You can go to the XP, go to the little thing that has a little magnifying glass, search where on Barnes Law Post on Biden, and you'll say I'm saying twice as harsh thing. But they're just too lazy, and they're so in their little quarter. So for the record, policy-wise, I have been a long advocate against my libertarian friends in favor of tariffs to rebuild American industry and manufacturing. I think it's a national security priority as well as a cultural consequential event, because when men have real jobs, the whole thing goes better. All of society goes better. All of life goes better. So that amongst other reasons, long supported it. The president announced the tariffs, and they chose, for whatever reason, Stephen Miller, whether he's got distracted or what, I don't know, does very good work on immigration. His foreign policy stuff tends to be crap. And in this arena, they convinced him that if he used the international emergencies law to support the tariff law, then that would be the best way to give him maximum flexibility. They needed to be honest with him and say, we need to stay within these confines and these parameters and not try to give him expansive power in ways that Trump would be tempted to misuse. And that's what's happened. And what I predicted was, if he starts using these tariffs for reasons not related to redomesticating American industry, like slapping tariffs on India to support Ukraine, of all people, tariffs on Brazil because he's upset about how they're treating Bolsonaro, and tariffs on other countries in response to a wide range of political things. Trump just loved it. He loved the power of tariffs so much, he started using it all over the place. And the problem was that was increasingly divorced from the statutory basis. So for those that haven't been here before, tariffs are an Article 1 power given to Congress by the Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court ruled about 80 years ago that they can delegate that power under certain limits to the executive branch, to Article 2, to the president. And the question became, did they delegate the power to issue these tariffs that Trump issued under the international emergency laws? Was that within their constitutional power to do? And was Trump's actions consistent with it?
So the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and that gives the argument is that, and going back to the Reagan video, the argument is that gives Trump the power to invoke a national emergency and apply a tariff, presumably on I won't say pinpoint, but on a specific issue that requires a tariff for the purposes of ensuring national security. The argument here,
he can ban all trade under it. He can license it. So the rhetorical argument on the Trump side is, if he can ban it and he can license it, why can't he tariff it? Even though the word tariff is not in that law, and that law has never been used before for the purpose of tariffs. The problem is tariffs are specifically mentioned in the Constitution as power given to Congress. And so what it creates is remember the way they finally got rid of the dangerous Chevron doctrine that gave too much power to the executive branch was they said that it's a major question. And if it's a major question, Congress needs to, with clarity and specificity, legislate on it and can't just give its legislative power to the executive branch. So there was a lot of concern over whether this invokes the major questions doctrine. The second issue is, could they delegate this to this degree? And that gets into the non-delegation doctrine. In other words, certain things are so fundamentally legislative that even if with specificity you try to delegate it, you're constitutionally prohibited from doing so. And again, all of these are coming up because he chose to use a statute that was the most vague and tried to assert the power that was the most broad. And so and of course, tariffs are unique in that they raise revenue. That's why it's given that power given to Congress.
Well, this is the question in terms of a practical solution. Hypothetically, he loses whatever, 5-4 or 9-0. It could be devastating to have to reimburse that money. Now, he made a public statement, which is not the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which is the political pressure on the judges to say, if you render the decision that declares it null and void or whatever, you'll bankrupt America and destroy the economy, whatever. What is the practical solution that the Supreme Court could issue that would, on the one hand, declare that he exceeded whatever powers there was, to apply those broad blanket tariffs, but while preserving, I don't know, Congress's ability to ratify the action themselves? Can they say this is bad and it's up to Congress to fix it?
So there's two different parts. One is what's going to happen on the tariffs. Are they going to say he has this authority to begin with? And then how will they limit that authority? Will they say, well, in this particular instance, it was a misuse of this statute, or will they go beyond that and say, actually, Congress can't delegate this authority to you? Or will they go even beyond that and say, Congress, this is a major question, and Congress has to legislate on it with much more particularity, and they failed to do so here? Because that impacts both the what he can do down the road. Now, in terms of remedy, they are going to be reluctant to order a refund. Right now, the way that would work is, in this case, only the parties that are parties to the case, because not brought as a class action, only the parties to the case get a refund. Nobody else gets a refund. Now, what is you can petition for a refund through the administrative process, but that takes years. So the other possibility they could do is stay the remedy and allow Congress to give Congress a window of opportunity to legislate on it in such a way that we don't owe $1 trillion back, because that would be a different kind of our policy disaster for the president.
Yeah, the other countries who have all had to pay this tariff are going to say, well, it was unlawful, and now we want reimbursement from the American government, so we have to go through the court process.
But it's a long administrative process to get that, usually 2-3 years. So it would severely damage Trump's credibility. And one of his is if they constrain and constrict his policy and issue a refund. I think they'll try to find a compromise to where the refund is not immediately due. But I do think the three liberals are against him, no surprise there. Then Gorsuch's questioning was very skeptical across the board. So he's lost Gorsuch is my guess. Then Roberts' questioning was very skeptical. Well, now you're down. You're 5-4. You're finished. The problem is even Thomas and Alito had problems with it. They were trying to find arguments Trump could make, but you could tell they really weren't sold because it may have been Gorsuch that asked the question. He's like, if this emergency power is this broad, couldn't a president say that climate change is an emergency and thereby issue tariffs on anything and everything they wanted around the world? That could basically be the taxes in disguise in that sense. And the opinion apparently was, yeah, they could. It's like, well, hold on a second, right? That's going to get Alito and Thomas's attention as to how much power do we want to give the president in this context?
Well, no, but I mean, the answer has to follow from the conduct. But what would be the practical problem that Gorsuch would find from that answer? They say, if we declare it's a climate crisis, we can impose tariffs on every country on Earth, pretty much, on specific products that have a nexus to purported climate change, a purported nexus.
Well, yeah, I mean, and what Trump unfortunately has had to assert is that he doesn't have to show a nexus either, because he quit showing a nexus when he tariffed India on Russian oil for Ukraine. That has no connection to the domestic manufacturing base at all. So it also cost him the Indian vote support, not a big constituency, but they also jumped ship in the 2025 elections. So And for what? For Ukraine? I mean, if you're doing over H-1B visas, have at it. I'm all with you. Over Ukraine? Unbelievable. But so I think that's the problem. I think there is pretty much no chance that the scale of authority he was asserting he will get.
Mm-hmm.
I think the opinion of the Federal Court of Claims will ultimately be affirmed. But if you're on the Trump administration side, what may be more unsettling is the Supreme Court may gut your power to issue tariffs in the future outside of limited circumstances. They may say you have to go follow these specific statutes. You have to follow these specific. And Gorsuch and Roberts were inclined to say, even that's probably not enough because it's the kind of major question that Congress has to really legislate itself, that Congress has to decide the tariff rate, not the president at some level, and outside of very unique circumstances. Now, there's about a quartet of statutes he can use, but those statutes require investigation. They have a cap on the length of the time of the tariff, a cap on the amount of the tariff. It's much more difficult to use those other statutes. This was an attempt to broadly empower the president in matters of trade policy, and I think the Supreme Court's going to gut it. And I think, unfortunately, the president put himself in this position because he was encouraged and incentivized to use it for anything and everything. You know, people like Lindsey Graham are whispering in his ear, "Hey, tariff those people too, for the latest war cause." That Graham gets Graham's so excited and out of bed in the morning. So I think that's unfortunately that it was amazing is Soros Scotty Bessent came out saying they were going to win. And it's like, how can you be that slow? But I guess he's shown he's that slow in a wide range of other contexts. By the way, if you're going to send somebody out to talk about championing the working class, don't send out the Wall Street guy, right? You know what I mean? It's not even a good look about, it's just a mistake. But the Soros Scotty Bessent, I think, has sabotaged the president. And one of the ways he did so was encourage him to misuse and abuse tariff power in a way that now is going to gut his ability to use it over the next 3 years.